Still on Joe Biden, he would have gone to that bilateral meeting in these summit season with a bit of a spring in his steps, because the Democrats have retained control of the US Senate after a crucial victory in Nevada. I want to get to our US political analyst now, Eric Ham. Eric, we spoke a lot over the last couple of weeks, and this is quite a stunning result for the Democrats. Before I left the US, Nevada was still in play, no longer. So it all comes down to Georgia, doesn't it?
Well, it does. And actually coming down to Georgia just means extending the lead for Democrats in terms of their control in the Senate. And we saw this play out. And of course, many of the polls and pundits had Republicans with a red wave. But what we saw here were the Democrats who voted early. And we saw a lot of Democrats vote early. Remember, going into Election Day, Democrats had a 5 million vote lead nationally over Republicans. And there was the question, could Republicans actually catch up to that lead? Apparently not, because what we are now seeing is Democrats will control the Senate and likely extend. And even though right now projections are showing that House Republicans will hold at least a 3-seat majority, it's still unclear at this time because there are a number of seats that are still outstanding. All
right, Eric. So here we are, almost a week after Election Day. The Democrats hold the Senate. So just for our viewers, the US Congress is made up of the House and the Senate. The Democrats retain the Senate, no red wave there. The House, they were predicting a 20-seat majority. And you saying at the moment it's 3?
It's 3.
Wow. How did that happen?
Yeah. Well, I think what we saw here, again, I think what many people underestimated, or what many pundits, many pollsters just failed to recognize and pay attention to, was the early vote. Look, early voting across the United States began back in October, or the first week of October. At that point, polls simply did not matter. What you needed to do was look at what voters were actually doing, not what they say they were going to do, what they were actually doing. And what we saw was voters in droves going to the polls early and voting. And so I think that's how Democrats are able to blunt what we're seeing. In fact, just to give you a greater understanding of how this played out, if Democrats took a shellacking in New York, right now it looks like they're going to lose anywhere from 5. The Democrats will lose anywhere from 5 to 8 seats in New York alone. If Democrats had held many of those seats that were held by Democrats, right now, we would not even be having this conversation about Republicans possibly even taking control of the House. And another reason why this looks like this might actually be advantageous to Republicans, if in fact they do take control, is because states like Florida were largely and heavily gerrymandered to give Republicans a noted advantage in many of these House races. So again, it's because of gerrymandering and because Democrats in New York did a very poor job of drawing many of those congressional districts that Republicans are even now having a chance at possibly taking control of the House of Representatives.
Yeah, Republicans went hard in New York on the crime, the law and order issue. But I say, it's all down to Georgia. I don't mean because of the Senate majority, but I mean Donald Trump. So a big repudiation of Donald Trump. I couldn't quite see it early on election night, but as the results started to come in, you could see that this was really bad for Donald Trump. He still has got these big announcements on the 15th of November. Then there's the Georgia runoff. If he announced that he's running for president in 2024 and then the Republicans lose Georgia, I mean, there's a direct line from that to him, isn't there? It doesn't look good for him.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, we know right now from many of our sources that many of the advisors surrounding Donald Trump are begging, pleading with him not to announce that he is running for president.
It's also interesting to note. Eric? I mean, he's made this big song and dance, all these teasers over the last couple of weeks. I mean, Mick Mulvaney suggested he could maybe use this big announcement to announce an exploratory committee. I mean, that's not going to wash, is it?
No, but I mean, again, this is Donald Trump. I mean, Donald Trump is known for being mercurial and very different. So he could just decide not to do it. But we also know on that same day that former presidents George W. Bush and Barack Obama are holding 2 separate conferences and summits focusing on disinformation in politics. George W. Bush is going to be holding an event in Dallas, Texas, and Barack Obama will be holding his summit in New York. So clearly what we're seeing here is that there is a growing concern about MAGA Republicans and MAGA conservatism, what it means for the country. But more importantly, what many Republicans are looking at is how detrimental it is. Look, ever since Donald Trump got elected in 2016, Republicans have lost the House, the White House, the Senate, and now we see in this election they have lost, again, massive seats, not just at the national level, but also if you look at what took place at the state level, four state legislatures across the country flipped from red to blue. And already we know a number of election deniers who ran for Secretary of State and many of these battleground states also lost as well. Very bad night for Donald Trump.
They did that with Joe Biden being one of the most unpopular presidents in recent memory at the moment, and that being a drag on the Democrats' vote. So that just tells you how bad it is for the Republicans. Eric, pleasure to speak to you as always. We're going to check in with you again soon. We'll see you soon.
Thank you.